What's up, everyone? We decided it was probably time to do some sort of a studio tour, like walkthrough. So we'll start with the guitars and all this stuff over here. So this is one of the basses that we use. It's just a pretty inexpensive Squire PJ bass, but it sounds really cool with fuzz. So we keep it around. Done a couple of videos with this. It's I think a 2017 Les Paul Standard. This is probably the one that gets the most use. This is my main guitar for live. It is I think it's a 2016 SG Faded or Special or whatever they called it. This one was really dark compared to all the other ones I saw. So most people think it's like a 70s SG. It's got a bunch of wear on it. But yeah, it was exceptionally darker than the other one, so I thought it was really cool. But it sounds awesome. This is I don't even know the year, probably 2013 Mexican Strat. I'm not really a Strat guy, but Josh plays this one whenever we need to do like clean stuff, and it works. Does the job. I might change the pickups out on that at some point. This one, it's been in a video or two. I'm gonna use this. We're gonna do a video on Nirvana guitar tones coming up here in a couple weeks. So this will definitely serve its purpose then. But awesome guitar. Love the sound of these pickups. Great sounding humbuckers coming from Fender, which was pretty surprising actually. This has become our main studio bass. 4-string with the humbucker. It sounds super brutal. The baked maple neck is really nice too. It's super comfortable. Very spanky, really punchy. Really easy to EQ and compress. It seems to work really well in mixes. This is, I think it was a 40th anniversary RD. It's got active electronics in it, which was really the reason I bought the guitar. I'm not a huge active pickup guy, but I thought these sounded really killer with high gain. Just a boat anchor of a guitar. I think it weighs like 10 or 11 pounds, but it's really fun to play on. It's a riff rocker. This is usually the guitar that we go with for heavier like metal and high gain guitar videos. It has never failed me. The Schecter stuff these days is just super killer. The fretwork is really, really great for being budget guitars, like under $1,000 stuff. And this is the Mark I version that had the Seymour Duncan black winners, and they sound fucking rad. So I love this guitar. And then we have a couple like inexpensive acoustics. There's an Epiphone acoustic and a Taylor GS Mini. I think we've used them a couple times for things, but we typically use Josh's. He's got a, what is it?
It's a 314.
Yeah, Taylor 314.
Mahogany.
That thing sounds rad. We use that for acoustic demos, and then this is it's just retarded. I don't know why we have it. It's a pink mini Ibanez. Maybe someday we'll gent on it or something. What the kids are doing these days, I don't know. And then here is this is the camera we normally use. I think it's a Canon T5 or something. It's probably going to be upgraded very soon because it's not the greatest camera in the world. This is like a little mini board. I use this live with my band, and it's just nice to have a little mini board if you want to do small pedal chains lying around, so you have to break the big one out. Precision drive. This Ibanez delay is one of my favorite delays of all time. Super underrated. I think a lot of people steered away from these because some of the components were bad. But if you can find a good one, they're a workhorse. They're really cool. Russian Pickle, Precision Drive, the original OG Wampler Decibel, that's really good. And then the Fuzzmaster General. And then just like an assortment of stuff, we got these Behringer pedals are actually really amazing for the money. I think they're like 25 bucks. This is an HM2 clone. This is an FZ2 or a Super Fuzz clone. This thing sounds super nasty. Every guitarist in the world should have one of these for 25 bucks, dude. This pedal is killer. Then we got a real HM2. This is a Taiwanese version. Turbo distortion. Gonna be using that in the Nirvana video coming up. Wazacraft Blues Driver. The original Sansamp Classic. The Fat Sandwich. This is another one that I don't see a lot. There's not a lot of info on it online either, but this thing basically sounds like Joe Bonamassa in a box. It's really killer. Rat. It's a reissue Rat. And this pedal, I'll probably do a video on this at some point too. Just really haven't had time. This is a pedal that was made by Stan Cody, the new guy over at Fender that's in charge of their pedal division. He hand wired this for me for free. I won it in a contest, and it's super cool. It's based off the Marine Layer reverb. You've got 2 channels that you can switch back and forth between A and B presets. Your master bypass, and then it's got this sustain feature. So you basically can hold this down and get infinite sustain, kind of like a Super Ego or a Freeze pedal. And it's got pre-delay, and then 3 different room or reverb algorithms. You got room, hall, and ambient, and it's also got a gated reverb preset. So this will be in a video soon. That's super cool. And then just some power supplies and switchers. We got a Eventide mixing link. Haven't had a chance to use that yet, but I think it's gonna be in some bass videos coming up. And then on to mics. Got a pair of the Blue Mouse or Blue Mices, if you want to say it plurally. There we go. This is actually a really great ribbon mic. We did a ribbon shootout, and this was my personal favorite in all of them. The SE-VR2. That's a killer ribbon mic for not a lot of money. I think they're like $400 or $500. These we got fairly recently. Again, great mics for the money. The Warm Audio 47 clone. It feels like it's expensive and it sounds expensive. It's a great mic. It was like $900. And then what has become my favorite mic on acoustic guitar as of late is the Warm 87 clone. This thing is amazing on acoustic guitar and vocals. Got a few more down here. Got a bunch of dynamic mics. I got a couple of Rode Dynamics. I think these are the M1s. These are... we got these Rode, I think they're M5s, small diaphragm condenser mics. These are great for like duct taping to, not duct taping, like electrical taping to a 57 on a snare. Really good like discrete microphones if you don't have a lot of space. They sound super clean. And I think there's some like PG81s in there. I got a probably my most expensive mics in the whole studio are these 414s. I got a pair of these. Not super happy with them. I've done a bunch of shootouts, and I actually prefer the sound of the Warm clones over these. These might be kind of cool, like on drum overheads or piano, something, stuff that's more airy. But for what we do, like primarily like rock and guitar and you know, male vocals, they don't really work out for what we do. So I might be selling these. Got a couple of these. These are the like the little brother, if you will, to the 414. I actually much prefer the sound of these. They're a cheaper mic. They've got a more detailed, prominent, like forward mid-range, which might not work the best for vocals, but as far as instruments and toms and acoustic guitar go, these are a really great mic for the money. We got some Blue Encore 100s, really great vocal handheld mics. I would say they're probably like the quality of an SM58, but they seem like they're always like buy one get one half off, so a 2-for-1's pretty cool. And these are the 100 I's. And I haven't used these much yet. I've got so many other small diaphragm condensers. I typically resort to those for other things, but these are cool because the head swivels. So again, like if you're throwing them on toms or snare drum and you don't have a lot of space, you know, you can swivel that head 180 degrees and, you know, get it to where you want to go. One's down here. Oh, these are really great. All the SE stuff is fantastic. These are the SE4s. Yep, pretty sure they're the SE4s. Oh, SE5s, I'm sorry. I've used these on drums, drum overheads a lot. They're really great. They kind of sound like KM84s. They're very warm for a small diaphragm condenser. And for a mic that's made in China, they're surprisingly good sounding. Had these microphones, I think, longer than anything else I own. It's a pair of the Cascade Fatheads. These are awesome on guitars, awesome for room mics. I've used them on group vocals a couple times. They're really cool. This is just like a little desk area. We tend to just throw like all of our random shit in here. We got like some fast fret. Got neon green masking tape because that's always really handy, believe it or not. Polishing cloth, extra strings, a box of picks, tube, and guitar tools. And this is holy fuck. Oh. As I can tell when you're weak, you can't lift your own pedal board. This is the studio board. I never use this live. Josh has got one that's about this big too. But it just kind of, it'll come out from time to time. I've got all the Strymon stuff on it, so tons of modulation. It's really cool to do stuff in stereo. But, you know, you got a good compressor, got the Deep 6, your tube screamer that does literally everything. EQ pedal, you know, if you're like getting a big difference between humbuckers and single coils. This is the pedal I use to take care of that. This surprisingly is my favorite gate of all time. No one ever thinks of Pigtronics when it comes to gates. You know, you always think like the Sentry or the Decimator or whatever. This thing is super fast. It's very responsive. They actually just came out with a mini version, which I might pick up. But this gate is really killer, especially if you're doing metal. And then, you know, Big Muff for like the early 90s stuff. I'm a huge Pumpkins fan. The Hendrix Fuzz Face, which does not have an adapter power supply 9-volt built in, which sucks, so the battery always dies. But that pedal sounds awesome through a non-master volume Marshall. Yeah, Dispatch Master, the greatest ambient reverb delay pedal of all time. Got to have the Space Echo. This thing's super cool. And then the Small Clone. That'll be another one that is featured in the Nirvana guitar tone video coming up. And that's it for the studio board. So this is the other wall. I really wanted to cover these because we probably use these more than anything in the entire studio. These are really great for mixing. This is kind of a weird room. Obviously, it's just like a carpeted basement. So acoustically, it's not the best. And what I'll do when I'm mixing is I'll take these and I'll literally just form like a wall behind me to kill all the reflections and tighten everything up. But you can do the same thing, you know, in front of a drum kit if you want to, you know, tighten the kit up and control some of the cymbal bleed. These are great for separating musicians, using in between guitar amps. I actually did that on my band's last record. We just stacked a bunch of these in between cabinets to separate mic bleed, and they worked really well. Also, they don't fuck up your walls. You know, you don't have to spray foam insulation and stuff all over. You can just move these wherever you want, stick them in a closet at the end of the day, but they work surprisingly well. And then we'll move over to, I guess, the guitar wall, amps and cabs. This is a Sovtek MiG 60. That has become my main, I guess, live amp for my band. It sounds just like, I would say, a better version of a JCM 800. I actually like the way that sounds better than a JCM 800. It's got the original tubes in it from 1994, so that was a really great pickup. I found that from a dude in, I think it was Michigan. This is this amp here, the Sun Model T, the reissue. A lot of people prefer the sound of the originals from the late 70s, I think. I actually like the sound of this way better. I think these are way gnarlier. The clean tone goes from like kind of like a Fender Bassman sort of a sound all the way up through like a Marshall JTM 45 when it's dimed, and the lead side kind of starts out like a 6505 sort of a gain, like a really nice. It's actually a great sounding gain for metal, and when it's dimed, it sounds just like the old school Model Ts. So I think this is everything the old school ones are. It's just a better mousetrap. And this is a Sun Beta Lead. It's one of the amps that I had wanted basically since I was a little kid. I couldn't get one until I could afford it, you know, as an adult. But this thing is the only solid state amp I own. It sounds fucking gnarly. When you plug into this, both inputs, you can kind of use the EQ in a Pultec sort of a way, where you can boost the top side and cut the bottom side and get all kinds of crazy EQ curves. But that thing sounds gnarly. And my favorite thing of this whole amp is the reverb. It sounds like a reverb from like a 70s like Space Odyssey movie or like an arcade game. It's really nasty and dirty and gross, but in like a fuzz rock band, it's super cool. And that cabinet is, believe it or not, also my best sounding cabinet in my opinion. It's very dark sounding. The speakers in it are, you know, probably 30 to 40 years old. Yeah, probably 30 years old. This one is blown. I just recently blew that. So I'm going to get in there and I'll probably end up if I can't just replace that one, I think I'm going to replace everything with the new Celestion Redbacks. Those sound pretty cool. Then we got the PRS Archon, the 50 watt. I just plugged into this amp the other day. It had been months since I played it and plugged it in yesterday. Man, the clean channel on that thing is incredible. If you use it with a reverb pedal, it's basically a Fender clean. This side is everything a 6505 wants to be and wishes it was. Just a very aggressive, mid-range forward, super tight sounding gain. It's actually like a really great sounding Marshall sort of a gain sound, but with more gain. And you crank the gain and it'll do modern metal. I don't even think you need to use a tube screamer with that amp. It's really tight as is. Soldano Hot Rod 50. I think this one's from 1993. Killer Marshall sounding amp. It's just like at 4 on the preamp. Actually, about right there is where a JCM 800 is maxed out on gain. So obviously, you know, you could like go from here to here, and it's completely outside of what a JCM 800 can do. But really great for blues, for creamy leads. It's really great on the clean channel too, with it cranked right on the edge of breakup. Great rhythm amp. 6505. I think this is only a few years old. I think it's just one of those amps. If you're doing heavy guitars and you're doing metal, you really have to have one of those. When all else fails, this amp will do you right. And then we got the Mesas. This is gonna be in that Nirvana video we do. It's a 50 caliber, basically the same sort of a preamp section as the Studio 22. Slightly different, but they sound very similar. That's a killer amp. you know, if you want to sound like Metallica, but you don't have, you know, the money for like an old Mark III or Mark II C+, this is pretty goddamn close. So, you know, for $700-800, that'll do the job. Dual rectifier, again, like the 6505. You know, if you're doing metal or rock or hardcore, you pretty much just have to have one of those on standby because it's a workhorse amp for those genres. And this stiletto, this is a bit of a sleeper amp. That was Mesa's take on an English circuit, you know, like their hot rodded JCM 800. I think it sounds very different. We actually did a shootout of this versus a JCM 800, and it was really hard to get them to sound the same. We got it pretty close, but this amp does way more than an 800 does, and I think the clean channel is way more usable too. Rocker Verb 100 Mark III full stack, just fucking why not? You know, like it looks really cool, so we have it. And same with the 800 stack. I use one of these cabs live. I actually like the sound of a slant cab turned on its side in smaller venues. It seems like it's got a really nice coverage pattern and a nice spread. Very different from something like this where it's very directional, or you know, the Bogner cab or the Bassan cab. They're very directional. But yeah, Marshall JCM 800 stack. It works for, you know, rock and roll, or if you want to sound like Angus Young or do AC/DC. Killer amp, classic. Here we've got like more of the, you know, the recording stuff. The control room is the live room, so that's always a little bit of a challenge, but I really like that. I like being in the same room as the musicians. It's just it's a very interesting experience. You don't feel so disconnected from people. But yeah, it's we've got an Allen and Heath. I think this is a GL 3300. We've used it on a couple projects. Most of the time, we end up just patching into Outboard Gear and doing stuff straight into the converter. But one of these days, I'm sure we will do a gnarly punk band and just run every channel straight through the board. And it's there if we need it. You know, it's good for summing. It's got great EQ. I think I picked this thing up for like $300. And it has $300 worth of EQ on it, so I think that was a good buy. For monitoring, these have been kind of our home stays for a while now. I had some Focal Solo 6Bs that those Adams A77Xs replaced, and I shot them out, and I'm sure there's people out there that'll fight me to the death on this, but I prefer the sound of these. I think they were more balanced sounding. They had better low end. The stereo imaging was better. And Focals, for whatever reason, they always seem to have a little bit of an upper mid-range push. And when you're mixing electric guitars all day and drums and overheads, it just causes ear fatigue, and it can get kind of annoying after a while. So those are going to be there for a while. Got the Dynes in the back. They used to be my main monitors. I haven't used them in a while. They're really bright. They're a good client monitor. If you've got to like bump some tracks in the studio and people really need to hear things and, you know, feel it on their chest, that's a good, basically like a PA monitor for them to listen to. Don't use them a ton anymore, but that's where these little JBLs come in. Those are the LSR 305s. Really inexpensive. They're like $150 a piece. Once in a while you can get them for like $200 a pair, brand new. And they sound rad. They sound really, really great for a 5. They're very detailed. They're great if you need to dive into the mid-range and check some stuff out. But those ones are really cool to reference every once in a while to check, see what your low end sounds like on a bass deficient system. But those are really great for $200 a pair. Then we got the new Apollo X16. I can't say enough good things about Universal Audio and what they're doing these days. They are killing it, man. Compared to everything else, I would have to say the quality of the conversion that these guys are offering is as good, if not better, than the competition. And for what these boxes offer with the DSP and the routing capabilities and being Thunderbolt 3, it's, in my opinion, stupid to go any other way. Simple Korg guitar tuner, because you got to be in tune. And then we got the aux. I just got this. Josh has had an aux for a while. and he's been doing some tracks that sound really great. My main thing was, it's the best sounding attenuator I've ever heard. So a lot of these amps, 100, 120 watts, it should help save my ears at times when we're reamping and shooting guitar videos. So hopefully that'll come into use soon here. Got the JDK Audio R22. Kind of a takeaway from the guys at API. I know API distributes these, and this actually has API transformers internally. I opened it up and checked, and they're stamped API. So they're old circuit designs, from what I understand, from old API desks, and APIs distributing these. Great drum bus compressor. It's a VCA, so you can really smash it hard and it stays punchy and clean and crisp. This EQ, just a stereo EQ. Every single band on there is a bell curve, which is kind of weird, but for mixing guitars, it's awesome. It's a really great EQ for dialing in the mid-range with a full mix, and really tightening up the bottom end on guitars. The Universal Audio LA610 Mark IIs. If you needed a desert island channel strip, like one channel strip for recording everything, that's a really great one to go with. It's a tube mic preamp circuit with a 2-band EQ. You can't go wrong there. It sounds a little soft for modern stuff, but for like bass DI and vocal and acoustic guitar, it's really great. The EQ is fantastic. I literally always use it. I don't think I've ever plugged into it and not bumped it up a dB or two on the bottom or the top end, or cut down the bottom end if it was too boomy. And I think that is an LA4 compression circuit. So kind of a takeaway from the LA2. Seems to be a little bit faster, but my personal favorite for that is smashing room mics on drums. You got it's a one-stop shop for that thing. Then we got the distressors. You pretty much have to have a pair of those. They work on everything. They're a Swiss Army knife compressor. They do a pretty good interpretation of an LA2A, an 1176, a DBX 160X. It's just a really great compressor to have. Great on bass guitar. That's probably my favorite thing to use it on. And then down here, we got the Warm Audio Pultec clones and the Warm Audio 273 EQ, which is their 1073 clone with the EQ. I guess with these, I've had these for a really long time, and I have been super happy with them. I've shot them out against other units that cost more, and I really like the sound of these. I'm not going to say they're the best sounding Pultecs in the world, but I think for the money, they're definitely the best bang for your buck. Great on vocals, great on kick drum, great on acoustic guitar, great on bass. The low band on these is super fat, so if you're doing anything and it sounds thin, you run it through the low band on that and it'll give it some life. And then this guy right here, we've used that a lot, mostly on guitars and bass. The EQ for me is worth it alone. I think these are like $1,500 for the 2-channel. I think it's worth it just for the EQ. That EQ is fantastic. Really punchy and aggressive and very hard sounding on bass guitar if you need it to be poking through the mix. And then through this mess of patch cables, I've got 2 of the 4710s, which don't get a ton of use. They're more or less like utility pre's if we have a big session and we need some extra preamps and don't want to go to the board. These are really cool. I prefer the sound of the solid state side. You can do what is it here? Oh yeah, it's a blend knob. You can do solid state all the way to the left, and then tube all the way to the right, and you can blend anywhere in the middle. I think they sound best just on the solid state side. They sound a little bit more detailed to me. And the tube side is a little bright compared to some of the other stuff I have, but they're really great, DIs and mic pre's if you need them. This is, I think, my most expensive piece of gear. That's the UA LA2A. Industry standard, speaks for itself. It's been around for 50 plus years. It just works. You throw that on a male vocal or a bass guitar And I mean, that's pretty much it. You don't have to do much to it other than that. My favorite mic pre of all time is the Focusrite ISA mic pre. That's the 428, the 4-channel version. I kind of wish I would have got the 8. A lot of people don't know this, but this was actually the first design that Rupert Neve ever designed, even before the 1073, which is really cool. This works on everything. It is just a really balanced, really rich, really open sounding mic pre. Great on vocals, great on acoustic guitar. Probably one of my favorites for electric guitar and high gain stuff because it really retains its composure. So that's another really great mic pre for the money. And then this API here, I think that is just two 512 Cs in the same chassis with the digital card on the back end. So if you wanted to run an ADAT or AES into an interface, you could get an extra 2 channels. The converters do sound really good. I know a lot of guys will actually use those for mastering. They'll run their 2-track through it and hit the transformers and use that for adding some weight to their tracks. I like it. We've got that running through these drum overheads right now. But these meters are huge. So if you're setting gain levels all the way across the room, and you need to see where your level is, it's really nice to have those big meters. Then in the 500 series chassis, I got some stuff in here I'm probably going to change out at some point. These Eventide delays, we've messed around with them. We've done some synth tracks and ran some vocals through the delays, but at the end of the day, I really prefer to work with time-based effects in the box. The dealing with latency and not having problems with inserts and printing tracks. It just seems like delay and reverb plugins have come so far. I can't tell the difference, and it's way more convenient to do that kind of stuff in the box. So I guess they're here for if you want to print something to tape and you've got a dead set sound where you want to have a quarter note delay or something, you can just do it super quick and just run your audio through the delays so they're there if you need them. But as far as mixing, I don't really ever use those for mixing. We got 2 of the 500 series DBX, the 160s or the 560As. You really can't have enough of those. I'm running my vocal through one now. Those are industry standard for punk mixes for bass guitar, snare drum, kick drum, vocals. They're super inexpensive and they sound awesome. This one here is actually the American version, and this one here is the Chinese version, and they sound very different from one another. The way that they compress is literally night and day, so I think it's really cool to have both of them. And then we got these, which are the Heritage Audio 2264 JRs. It's basically a Neve style 2264 compressor, diode bridge compressor in a 2-space 500 series chassis, and there's also a 1073 mic pre-circuit built in. There's no filter. I don't even think there's an output gain. It's just an input gain on there. But yeah, if you need an extra pair of 1073s, the thing with these is you cannot use the compression circuit or the mic pre at the same time. So you can either use 2 stereo for compression, like say drum bus compression, or 2 stereo mic pre's for acoustic guitar, or you can use 1 for a mic pre and 1 for a compressor, and you've got yourself a really vibey sounding channel strip. So those are really cool. This is the Warm Audio Tone Beast. I've had that a long time too. It is a hot-rodded API 312 mic pre-circuit with selectable transformers and selectable op amps, and there's some other weird stuff you can do with the circuit on there to get more saturation and more top end. I really like it for bass guitar, and it actually sounds really cool when you distort bass guitar through that one. And over here we've got the Manley LOP Plus, which is a stereo channel LA2A circuit clone that's been hot rodded slightly To me, it sounds a little bit more modern, a little bit more hi-fi. You can hit it harder, and it stays a little bit more transparent. I think it sounds really great on electric guitars. But if you really need to smash something, and the old school LA2A isn't working, this will hold together a little bit better and give you a little bit more clarity. This Manly Force is really great. I would call it a budget preamp for what it is. I think they're around $2,000. You know, if you can get 4 channels of Manly tube preamps for $2,000, that's a deal in my books. They sound awesome on drums. They're really fat. Again, kind of a hi-fi sounding mic preamp. I think right now we've got them running on, kick and snare and toms. So basically all the drums, and they sound really killer. 3 Warm Audio WA76s, because why not? They're dirt cheap. They're really great for the money. They sound every bit as good as an actual 1176. And if you can get 3 of them for, maybe even 4 of them for what one costs, man, why not? They've never done me wrong thus far. And down here we've got a Lexicon. I think it's the MXL 400 dual stereo delay. Again, I don't use outboard reverb like time-based processing or delay very much. But if you needed something quick, or if you needed to use that reverb, say for a headphone mix, to keep latency down for a vocalist, that's a really good option. The plate reverb on that does sound really good. And then this thing, this is the BK Butler TubeWorks Blue Tube. I did have the what is that one called? There's like a tan version of this that David Gilmour and Stevie Ray Vaughan were notarized for using way back when. The Tube Driver. That's in a pedal form too, and it sounds really good. This thing, I don't know, I haven't really figured it out yet. It works running into an amplifier if you need to get a little bit more drive or saturation out of the amp. Like if it's a sterile sounding solid state amp, that works really great. Not a huge fan of using it through the effects loop. The EQ really doesn't do it for me, but I'm too lazy to unrack it, so it's kind of sticking in there for a while. And then up here we've got the this is a early 90s Fender Tube Spring Reverb. It's really cool. A lot of these amps back here don't have reverb, so if you've got an amp that has got a good clean channel and you want to get a Fender sounding reverb out of it, that's awesome. Also, it's really cool to run vocals through it. It's a really cool effect. And this is actually Josh's kit. Well, it's a mishmash. It's his shells. It's a Pearl Decade kit. It's like a probably 13, 14, bigger size rack tom. Bottom is probably an 18. The kick is huge, but this is a fairly budget drum kit, and it sounds awesome. He's got hydraulic heads on there, and this thing rips, man. It's the Tama SLP bronze snare. Got that thing tuned pretty high. It sounds awesome. All right, that pretty much wraps it up for the studio tour for the Shred Shed 2019. Really appreciate you guys stopping by and checking it out.
Yeah, if you guys have any ideas for any videos or anything like that, just leave a comment, shoot us an email. We're always available, so we'll try to get it done. Thanks again.
We'll see you soon.